Good morning to all of you, and welcome to the April Cybersecurity Meetup. I am here with Jeff Dix, and hopefully Anil Melwani will meet us shortly. I'm Luis Alvarez, President and CEO of the Alvarez Technology Group. Jeff is our Chief Security Officer and man about town. And today we're going to talk about trying to make a subject a little bit more interesting than
good luck with that.
It sounds. Yeah, I know, but it's an important topic, right? So
yeah,
log
it is.
files.
It is a very important topic. Definitely.
Yeah, one of the things that we do as a company is try to look forward and stay ahead of the game when it comes to cybersecurity requirements and what our clients can expect from any regulatory issues that are coming down the pike, or any issues around cybersecurity or insurance policies, because a lot of our clients, I would say most of our clients, have invested in cybersecurity insurance in order to get coverage in case they do suffer a breach of some sort or an incident, and these things can be really expensive to recover from. I think I read the latest statistic was that in 2024, the average cost for recovery was somewhere around $2.5 million for small businesses. And that's all in. That's recovering the data, paying any sort of fines, because in many cases, if you suffer a breach, if you get ransomed, you got to pay the ransom. So it's not an inexpensive proposition. And so cyber insurance has always been something that we recommend to our clients, and something that many of them, as I said, have invested in. And over time, cyber insurance companies have tightened the requirements that they implement, or ask people to implement in order to qualify for insurance from the carriers that provide it. I remember back in the day, Jeff and I talk about this all the time, when the cyber insurance questionnaire. Oh, there's Anil. He's joining us. Let me bring him onto the screen.
Sorry
thank
about
you,
that.
Anil.
We had a brief internet outage that I had to address.
Well, thank you for that, and thanks for coming on board. We're talking about cyber insurance requirements and how back in the day, our clients would give us this one document and ask us to verify that they were doing all the things that the insurance carrier was requiring in order for them to qualify for cyber insurance. And I think nowadays the policy looks significantly different. The policy questionnaire is, how many pages would you think, Jeff?
It's more than one. It's probably up to 10 now.
Yeah.
In some cases, I've seen as many as 10 pages on a questionnaire. Yeah, the insurance companies have lost their shorts in the beginning of the ransomware era, because they weren't charging enough for their policies, and they were paying out, much more than they were receiving in premiums. So they are getting very detail oriented, and also, of course, raising their policy fees.
Mm-hmm. And one of the newest requirements that we're starting to see in policies is the requirement for log review and retention. So that's what we're going to talk about. What does that mean? And in a practical sense, how can that be done so that you can comply with that requirement, which, by the way, is not just a requirement for cyber insurance policies, but is also typically a requirement for many of the compliance frameworks that regulated industries like banks, financial services companies like CPAs, or healthcare providers like doctors and dentists have to adhere to HIPAA and some of the FINRA and some of the other ones that are out there. So they require this thing called log review and retention. So let's talk a little bit about what a log is and kind of the history of it, why it's a requirement, and more importantly, how we help our clients meet that requirement in a way that's affordable and practical, quite frankly. So, Jeff, you want to give us a brief history of SIEM or log retention, and in particular talk about a SIEM, what it is, and how it plays into it. And I should explain that SIEM, SIEM, stands for Security Information Management and Event Management. So Security Information and Event Management System.
It's actually incident security. Incident.
Oh, incident.
And
Okay.
Yeah. That's fine. No problem. Let's start what a log is. So a log is a system. It's a document or a file that has events that are occurring on the system. And those systems could be a Windows domain controller, could be a firewall, it could be a number of different devices you'd have on your network, including your workstations. And we always started with, okay, let's get our clients and help them maintain their firewall logs and their domain controller logs, which is where all your authentication and all your critical services exist and operate. And by default, there's very little retention as these files are created or these events are created in these files on the system itself. So in order to get retention, as you mentioned, you have to actually point the log data or the events to go to what's called a syslog server. Now, a syslog server could be various different types of storage. You set up the connection between the device, the firewall or domain controllers to that storage area, and the files are created in that storage area, which still need to have lots of capacity, many megabytes and gigabytes of data in some cases, depending on how large your network is. So these events are going offsite to your syslog server, and most companies will set that up so that if there's an event, and specifically if cyber insurance is involved, that the forensics from the cyber insurance company can go back and actually discover what happened. When did the event start? Was there a threat actor in the network? When did the threat actor first access the network? The cyber insurance companies and the clients and the organizations that are affected definitely want to find out what happened, sequence of events, what was compromised, where were the threat actors in the network, what data may have been exfiltrated out of the organization to the threat actors' servers so they could get access to it. And that's kind of where we started. But now there's so much data in the logs. In the early days when you and I started 30 years ago, you could actually download a firewall log and review it manually and see if there's anything funky going on in there. Of course, you had to be really the type of person that could go through many lines of log entries to kind of figure out what happened. So the advent of the Security Incident and Event Manager really kind of takes that manual work out of it. It does two things. One, it can manage your logs by capturing all the log events and putting it now in the cloud, which is great because there's, for the most part, unlimited capacity to store those logs in the cloud. But it also will actually, in real time, look at those events to see if anything nefarious, if a threat actor is trying to hack into the network, or if there's anything going on the network. It gives organizations real-time information as if an event is going on, if something's affecting their network. I've always been surprised that a lot of our customers and a lot of organizations think that as their IT company, we already know all that stuff, or we have visibility to whether somebody's breaking into their network. And in some cases, depending upon the security services that you subscribe to, that is somewhat true. But without a SIEM device that's actually looking at all the log entries and then making intelligent, and you're bringing like artificial intelligence. It's not really artificial intelligence, but that is certainly coming into that technology. But it can pull, it can look for things like repetitive logins. If a user account is trying to log in 30 times within a few minutes, that's probably a brute force password attack on that organization. The SIEM is going to send an alert to the IT, and IT can look at it immediately and determine whether that's just a user that really forgot their password and is just trying multiple times, or if there's an actual attempt to break into the network. I'm
glad you pointed that out, because back in the day, when we were young and the world was less complicated, the syslog servers would just ingest the data. They didn't do anything with it other than just, hey, this is where my logs go. If anybody ever needs to look at them, here you go. Have at it. And so SIEMs, which actually started, the first iteration of a SIEM was 2006. So they're not that old. It's we're talking less than 20 years. Mm-hmm. They were barely more than syslog servers. The idea was, okay, let's ingest data from multiple sources in those early days, and then see if there's any correlation. So there was some automation and some technology that would look at log files and say, well, okay, we see this on this system and this on that system. Maybe they're somehow related, and it would issue an alert. And that alerting feature has become much more important over time because the amount of data, as you pointed out, the number of logs and the systems that can generate logs is overwhelming. We're talking about, it's impossible for a human being to do manually what the cyber insurance carrier is asking, which is, review the logs and maintain them. So you need a SIEM, some system that has technology and automation and now AI built into it, so that it can not only look at that data and analyze it, but it can also alert you if there's unusual behavior or things that don't look right. So we've had SIEMs out there. We'll talk more about the product we use in a moment, but for our clients for several years now, we've been using it internally for a number of years. So we've gotten these alerts periodically where bad behavior is occurring, or somebody's trying to brute force attack our firewall, which means they just are sending pings to death and trying to clog up our internet. But we have a few examples, Jeff, that you can talk about of real world client use cases where a SIEM alert actually is very useful and has prevented real damage from happening.
Yeah, exactly. As you mentioned, before I get into that, is that with the syslog system and the logs going into a storage, it was really good for forensics, but it really didn't help prevent anything or stop anything from occurring quickly. You could go back to your logs and use the early SIEMs to kind of figure out what went on, sequence of events, as I sort of mentioned earlier, but it didn't really give you a whole lot of prevention, right? And as cybersecurity professionals, we want to try to identify an attack, within minutes of it beginning, and be able to thwart that attack so that the threat actors don't have even the chance to do, a ransomware attack or password spraying attack or the thousands of different types of attacks that are out there. With our security services, all of our clients get a SIEM for their, if they're using Microsoft 365 email system, our services have a SIEM that monitors their email system. And why that's important is because the two biggest attacks today still are ransomware attacks and business email compromises, where a user's mailbox has been compromised because the user's username and password are out there on the dark web, stolen from a data breach from another organization, and usually when that occurs on a mailbox, the threat actors will create new rules in that user's mailbox. They might add some RSS feeds to that account. So by monitoring those two indicators of compromise on a user's mailbox, we get an early warning that, hey, that user's mailbox is probably compromised. We can cut the connections to that mailbox, change the user's password, notify the user that there was an attack on their mailbox, that we changed their password, and get them back in operation, hopefully before the threat actor was able to use and leverage the successful access of that email account for other nefarious activities, fraud, and those kinds of things. Another different scenario. We just happened recently to one of our customers. Threat actors like to go after servers that are being built or newly built, because a lot of times as the server is being built, and I'm speaking specifically about Azure servers, a Microsoft Windows server that's built in the cloud. They try to monitor the addresses, the IP addresses that those servers are being built on, and they look for early vulnerabilities before the servers have been, completely hardened by whoever's building them. A lot of cases, that's us. Of course, it could be many other types of organizations as well. So we had a recent customer. Our projects team was building their new Azure servers, and because this customer had Blumira, actually the full version of Blumira, not just the part that manages the email systems, we detected what's called a password spray attack, which is basically a threat actor uses many different accounts. They try to instead of trying to brute force the username and password on a specific account, which tends to get locked out, hopefully, if the system is configured properly. They try, as an example, maybe 10,000 different usernames, one password, and one user at a time. They spread out their attempt to crack or break in with the user password over maybe 10,000 user accounts. Of course, that's all automated too. They're not just using the automated tools to do that. So for this particular customer, these servers were up on the internet. We were in the process of hardening them and getting all the security measures in place, but threat actors immediately attacked them with a password spray attack. With the Blumira SIEM, we were able to determine the countries of origin. There were probably, I think it was 9 or 10 countries in Europe that were indicated as the source of the attack. We were able to identify what they were attacking, the new Azure servers. We were identifying the type of attack and the actual specific vulnerabilities that they were trying to take advantage of. So we were able to determine that. We shut the servers down immediately. Then we went back with the SIEM and we looked at the logs and were able to determine that there were no successful logins on those new servers. So we were able to assure the client that nobody had access to their network or their data. So that's an example of the benefit of the SIEM, that we were able to thwart the attack to keep the threat actors from even further attempts to get into the network. So as an aftermath, we hardened the servers before we brought them back up and made sure that the attack that occurred would not occur again. So very successful. I was very excited because it was really kind of a first real-time use of a SIEM in thwarting an attack, and it was very successful. And I think this is really the wave of the future, is that we don't want to have an attack, have damage done to a client's network, or their data stolen or data encrypted. If we can prevent that with early detection with a SIEM, that's where we want to take our customers.
Yeah. How far away do you think we are, Jeff, from AI being able to do all of that on its own? It detects the attack and it implements the mitigation, and it just lets you know, hey, this was about to happen and we fixed it. Have a good night's sleep.
Yeah, I think it's got to be really close. I haven't seen it yet in the product that we're currently using, but in other security products, there's a thing called host isolation. Actually, Blumira has implemented that. I take that back, my previous statement back, because we just actually had a quick little training on it earlier this week, so that if the SIEM detects that there's a critical security event going on a system, that it can actually disconnect it from the network and isolate that host for further analysis. And if it keeps occurring, then you can isolate multiple hosts. So there's already that artificial intelligence built in for host isolation. No user has to be involved. It can happen automatically, or it can happen by an engineer going in and isolating a host. So it's here. It's just going to get better. Of course, the threat actors are high in their attacks, and we're going to try to use AI and leverage AI as much as possible to thwart those attacks. It's going to get crazy here in the next few years. I'm almost certain.
Well, we have a question from one of the participants, Rob, asking about, in particular, Blumira, because you mentioned we use a SIEM for all of our clients who have M365 and or Google Workspace, because it now works with Google Workspace.
Yes, it does.
It's included in our services, but if you want to expand that, the same SIEM, Blumira, to include other sources of logging information, such as Active Directory, Azure, or Google Workspace directory, or firewalls, other devices within your physical network, then there's a fee for that, because what happens then is that the log retention really
dramatically increases.
Yeah, and what cyber insurance companies are asking for right now is a year's worth of retention. So if you take all of the log information that any one device can generate, multiply that by a year, and then multiply that by any number of devices, all of a sudden you have a lot of data that needs to be stored. So there's a cost for that, and typically that's what clients are paying for. But the other thing, and the reason we like Blumira as our platform of choice, there are many SIEMs out there, but Blumira offers a number of capabilities that we like, and they're developing the product to include what Jeff and Anil were talking about earlier, which is something that's called agentic AI. And we think of AI today when you think about ChatGPT or Microsoft Copilot. It's generative AI. It's really good at answering questions if you prompt correctly. But where we're going to with the next generation of AI, artificial intelligence looks like is agents that are built to do specific things and can do it on their own without you waiting, or without waiting for you to prompt them. So a Blumira agent, for example, could detect, as we talked about, a BEC, and then take the same steps that an engineer would to isolate that account, disconnect all the sessions, disable the account until it can be investigated, and immediately do that. 7x24,
7x24 was the key, right? When somebody's breaking in at 2 a.m. when we're not available, since we're not a 7x24 shop yet. Immediate action by something, and an AI service running on Blumira that says, hey, the new rules just got created in this user's mailbox, and RSS feed was added. You could just decide to lock the account right away, and then it can be investigated in the morning. We can figure out what was going on. Was it the user just awake at 2 in the morning and creating new rules and adding RSS feeds, or was it somebody trying to, somebody had already hacked and had the credentials to get access to that mailbox?
Yeah, and so we're going to see more of that as the AI wars in cybersecurity heat up. We're starting, it started with better prompting, right? So the bad guys were just using ChatGPT to craft more believable phishing emails, so that people were falling prey to that. But now these agents that they can create, as well as the good guys, they're going to just basically say, hey, go out and find me these potential victims, do all these things to them, and if you're successful, then do these other things and collect my money for me and throw it into this bank account in the Far East. And then I'm just going to go home and not worry about it, because I got my evil black hat AI agents out there doing all my deeds for me, and I don't have to work all that hard.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting in the next few years.
Yeah, really sounds like it.
Yeah, so if you are interested in learning more about the capabilities of SIEM, and in particular Blumira, and you are a client and have not implemented it or asked us to implement the extended capabilities, please reach out to us. We're happy to do that for you and do a demo and let you see how it works. And I think you'll be, especially if you have a cyber insurance policy and it's coming up for renewal, or you're looking to get cyber insurance, chances are that you're going to have this requirement by the carrier. So you might as well get in front of it and start thinking about implementing it.
And the same if you're in any of those regulated industries, banks, healthcare, and so forth. It's definitely going to be coming with HIPAA and FDIC and CUIC requirements.
Yeah, in fact,
I'm sorry.
We're going to take a deeper dive into HIPAA, I think, next month with the new rules that are being formulated right now. Yeah.
The cyber insurance companies have an interest in preventing or nipping an event in the bud, because that's going to reduce their payouts. So you're going to see SIEM and SIEM-like services more of a requirement from the cyber insurance companies, because they're tired of the very large payouts for the the ransoms and all the expenses involved in a cyber incident. So if the company can get ahead of the game by starting to implement SIEM, it's really worth the investment to to be able to identify something happening at the time it's happening and be able to mitigate it almost immediately. That'll be my last word.
Okay. Well, we've reached the bottom of the hour. Your time is valuable, and we want to respect it. So thank you so much for attending. If you have any further questions, feel free to reach out. Otherwise, we will see you in the last Thursday in May when we will do our next meetup. Take care and have a great weekend.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.